want to bring up Ilihia Gonson from Hawaii Tourism Authority to tell us a little bit more about what the foundational technical program is and speak to us here today. Ilihia, thank you for being here.
Mahalo nui, brother. How about a round of applause for Mr. Kainoa Horkajo? Fantastic job so far on those opening lines. So my name is Ilihia Johnson. I'm the Public Affairs Officer at the Hawaii Tourism Authority. Born on Oahu, raised in Hilo on Hawaii Island. Kona is my home now, but here I am. In terms of ties to Maui, I have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter. All of my work that I do is for her. And her cousins and her uncle and auntie, they all live here in Pukalani. Aaron is a firefighter out in Lahaina. Jessie is she works in the medical field here, and the kids are Hamana up at Kamehameha. So good to be here. Mahalo for having me. I'm only reading because I don't want to ramble. But our mission at the Hawaii Tourism Authority, quite simply, is to malama, right? To care for, to protect, to steward, to nurture, in all the different ways you can take that. On paper, our mission is to balance tourism's economic benefits with its impacts on communities and natural resources in communities. And we do that in a few ways. One of our primary responsibilities is branding and marketing, to extend the invitation to visit to the kinds of folks who we want to invite to visit. Seems simple, right? Inviting people who are more likely to be mindful, folks who are going to be careful about their environmental footprint, folks who are going to prioritize supporting local businesses, being respectful of community, culture, and so forth. We do that in the major markets that we work in around the world: US, Canada, Europe, Japan, China, Korea, and Oceania, Australia and New Zealand. We also have folks on each of the major islands working to do that. I see our friends from the Maui Visitors and Convention Bureau here. You guys want to wave? You get Sherry, Megan, Leanne over here. Mahalo nui for being here. The other half of our work, the other side of our work, is management and stewardship. So when we think about destination management, that's ensuring that the social and physical infrastructure is in place to host the visitors we invite. Seems simple, right? We think about things like reservations for Haleakala Sunrise that the National Park Service implemented many years ago. More recently, state parks at Waianapanapa, at Iao, right? Requiring those reservations to help manage the flow, to manage the impacts. We think about programs like Malama Maui Hikina, a groundbreaking effort to empower and engage community organizations along the road to Hana to be present, to provide information, to provide education to visitors traversing that road. And I want to give Megan an extra special shout out for that. She stuck through it all the way. So mahalo nui, Megan. So marketing, management, what are we trying to manage? So just today, I pulled this up. There were 36 overseas flights that are going to arrive in Kahului today. And on those 36 overseas flights, 7,152 seats. That doesn't tell you how many elemu were in the seats, but 7,152 seats arriving in Kahului today from across the Pacific, not counting inter-island flights. In June 2024, I'm telling you guys this early, this doesn't come out till tomorrow, but in June, you saw 276,000 arrivals, down 22% from June of 23, down 27% from June of 19. Your average daily census, so the average number of visitors on the island on any given day, 55,978 visitors in June. Is that a challenge or is that an opportunity? It's really up to you folks to decide that. Those visitors spent $451.7 million in June alone. In the first half of 2024, that's a little over 1 million arrivals on the island of Maui. It seems like a lot. It is a lot. Sorry. Oh no, that's right. Okay. So that seems like a lot, and it is. But again, it's about building that social and physical infrastructure to be able to manage folks. And it's about making sure that those benefits can flow to everybody. In 2023, visitors spent across the Hawaiian Islands $21 billion, supporting over 200,000 jobs across Hawaii. $2.4 billion in state tax revenues. That paid for public education with some change left over. It's all about managing the flow of water, though. So some great photos here in the background, right? Destination stewardship is really about ensuring that opportunities exist along that waterway to build the Hawaiian, to build those channels, to feed your family, and to feed your community. Ensuring that we improve the soil conditions, ensure the farming conditions are good, such that no matter what you choose to plant, you get chance. Whether that's a farm, whether that's an activity, an attraction, a restaurant, a boutique, whatever it is, our job is to make sure that the soil conditions are good so that whatever you plant has a chance to survive. Right now, almost a year after the devastation that happened a year ago, it's important for us in the visitor space to be thinking about the new products that we want to build as we invite visitors to return and rediscover. Many people's favorite places have been lost. What can we build now in this time for them to rediscover? What can we share about that they can rediscover as they return? I'll give you a quick example. So usually, my first stop is Tasty Crust. I go eat my banana pancakes. But there are more places than Tasty Crust, you guys know, right? So after a few times at Tasty Crust, maybe you gotta go try Bamboo Grill. And maybe after a few times at Bamboo Grill, you can go try, where you think I went this morning? Sheik's is a fantastic answer. I didn't put Sheik's in the list, but where you think I went this morning? Nope. Jack's. You got him, right? Point being that, there you go, cash only. Point being that there's a lot to discover on the island of Maui and lots of opportunity to build new products and new things for people to return and rediscover. So I want to mahalo to all of you here and all of you on Zoom and all of you watching this later for taking the initiative to come check this out. See what it's about, see how you and your organization or your business can better connect with the visitor industry. I want to mahalo all of you for being here. Lisa, you had such a critical role in the response and the recovery and now in the rebuild. So mahalo to you for everything you do. Seriously. Mahalo. Lehia, your regenerative farming, it's such a prime example of where we need to go, where we need to get. Because if we cannot eat, then I don't know. What's next after that, right? Maile, mahalo to you for all your work, having a solid platform to share things with visitors. It's really important you can do all this cool stuff, and if you don't tell anybody, then it's really important. And Brittany, star of our Makau Maui series, mahalo to you for all you do, sharing the real stuff about lei, right? Sharing how much it means to us. Sharing how significant it is really important. It's putting our values into action, and I just really mahalo you for all the work you do. And Kainoa, of course, for being one handsome bugger. Mahalo for moderating today. And mahalo to Becky and Kanoi, the whole SP team, the whole OEV team. Mahalo for being here and putting this on. So on behalf of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, mahalo nui and enjoy today.
Don't tell everybody about Jack's, bro. Okay, mahalo, ilihia. And if you recognize that voice, just spend some time in the airports. That's him too. The idea that we can have these kind of conversations and they're being had by Hawaii Tourism Authority, by the Visitors Bureau, by the industry at large, means that we've already come really far, right? Because 10 years ago, we weren't having these discussions. 20 years ago, talk about regenerative or circular economy was sort of far, left kind of stuff, even though really it's the most central thing to traditional Hawaiian values and traditional community values that we have. So it's nice that we now get to bring that together and have it in this place. Ilihia mentioned, and I know there's always an undercurrent here on Maui, being that we are nearing the 1-year anniversary of the fires on August 8th. And I just want to take a moment before we begin the meat of the conversation to have a time of pule, for you to call upon your kupuna to bring them into this space. We use pule and prayer and chant and all that kind of different stuff for a variety of reasons. And one of the main reasons that I believe is because it allows us to join together in the same mental, spiritual, and emotional space to add to the physical space that we share. So we're all in here all together physically. But a moment of silence, a moment of prayer allows our hearts, our na'au, to tune in on those same wavelengths as well. So if we may take just a moment before we begin. E pule kako. E ko mako makui kalani na o makua na kupuna na iwi o keia moku kaulana o Wailuku na Wai'eha na poko. E nana mai ho'olohe mai. We call upon our gods, our goddesses, our guardians, our ancestors, both individual and collective, and the families of this place, of Wailuku, of Nawai'eha, of Napoko, Maui Nui a Kama. We ask you to look upon us, guide our thoughts, our words, our conversation today, to shape them in spirit and in character so that we may inform the world we seek to shape collectively moving forward. We ask for all of us in this room and all of those within sound of this voice over the airways to bring collectively the aloha, the positivity, the mana to uplift this conversation and in due turn uplift our community and this industry of hospitality in Hawaii. Mahalo ke akua, a mama, ua noa, lele kapule. Now I'm going to sit. So, our first panelist and speaker for today, I'm going to... I see Kanoi. She arranged things very well here. Okay, we're going to go down the far end of this amazing panel, and I'm very honored to be the only Kane up here with these strong wahine, is Lisa Paulson. I'm going to read a short bio. There is an additional bio in the paper that you might have had, and also for you on Zoom, that should be there as well. Lisa Paulson is the executive director of the Maui Hotel and Lodging Association. She brings 25 years of senior executive experience driving strategic growth and visibility for businesses and nonprofit organizations. She has worked with many of Maui's nonprofits, such as Maui United Way, American Heart Association, Hui No'eau Visual Arts Center, Ma'alama Ikeola Health Center, Maui On Stage, Book Trust Maui, Maui Academy of Performing Arts, Maui Humane Society, in addition to many nonprofit collaborations with MHLA. There's more of her bio in that flyer that you have there. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Lisa Paulson.
So thank you for that introduction. Longtime resident, almost 30 years. So that long list of nonprofits is over 30 years of being a part of the community. My job at Maui Hotel and Lodging Association is from a government perspective. So we do government affairs and public affairs. We are the liaison between the industry and our government leaders, and we also strive to make sure that we're ingrained in the community and supporting everything that goes on. In relation to today's discussion, we provide a lot of workforce development opportunities. We work with our youth in providing them pathways and hopefully helping them discover ways they can be a part of the industry, and whether if that's relations with agriculture, technology, finance. There's so many ways that they can be a part of the visitor industry in ways that when we look at sustainable and circular economy. The other thing that we're very proud to be a part of are the discussions for diversifying our economy and looking at piggyback industries that can help with being partners in the industry, like the filming industry, wellness industry, and even increasing our agriculture, our tourism agriculture segment. So that's why I'm here today and a part of the discussion. We've got so many avenues and so many things that we can continue to do just to make our industry a lot more beneficial for our community. So thank you very much.
I was ready for you to keep talking.
Oh, sorry.
Well, and I am going to jump in here because Lisa, I think before we kind of go on, and you, as you guys know, you are allowed to speak as much as you want at this. You have a very interesting perspective on this because this is your second time at the MHLA. In between, you went to the county for some time, and you've also spent all of this time in the nonprofit world. And I don't think that a lot of people, when we think about the visitor industry, think about the connections between the nonprofit world. We think about the for-profit sector. And when we think about the nonprofit side, we think, oh, maybe a little voluntourism area. But I think you have a unique perspective because when we talk about uplifting the community, the nonprofit side of it can have a lot to do, and maybe even more so than we've seen historically. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, this past Friday, we just distributed $1.5 million to 60 nonprofits at our charity walk reception in Wailea Marriott. We have the annual charity walk that we do, and this was the largest amount of money that we raised. It was almost $1.6 million. So we're very, very proud of that, especially when we look at our community and the nonprofits. They hold us up. They provide the services that the county and the state would not be able to step in and provide for us. So we are we're very supportive of them because in turn they support our employees. And that is one of our pillars at Maui Hotel and Lodging Association is support and protection of our employees, the workforce. The other thing that we do that we're very proud of is we support our kapuna. We have a kapuna appreciation twice a year, and we partner with Meals on Wheels and getting them a really special meal and gifts twice a year. And we have a golf tournament coming up that provides scholarships. We pass out on average $50,000 in scholarships every year. So you're right, I should have talked a little more about this, but we do believe in supporting our community because in turn we're supporting our workforce. And they're very, very important and key to who we are and how we present ourselves outwardly.
Thank you, Lisa. And I think in addition to MHLA and the industry at large, supporting the nonprofit worlds, obviously there's a great deal of opportunity for individual businesses, hotels, large and small businesses to be able to support individual nonprofits as well. I know there's a bunch of initiatives that we can talk about there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, our second panelist for today is Lehia Apana, the founder, or co-founder, I'm going to say, we're going to throw Brad in there too, of Poli Poli Farms in Wai'ehu. She and her husband, Brad, produce native and Polynesian plants in a regenerative agroforest. As a native Hawaiian, Lehia looks to ancestral technologies to grow important cultural foods, then turns those harvests into healthy packaged goods, a model that leads to healthier people and a healthier planet. Poli Poli Farms recently launched a project to build an on-farm food processing hub to help reverse the trends of Hawaii's broken food system, which currently imports nearly 90% of its food. Please help me welcome Lehia.
So I'm just talking about my bio a little bit.
You get to talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
When you have the mic, you're in charge.
Okay, I guess I'll talk about how I got here because this farming life is really kind of a second career. But we'll go way back. I'm born and raised on Maui. Was raised mostly in Wailuku. And today, as Kainoa mentioned, our farm is just one ahupua over in Wai'ehu. But growing up as a little girl, I knew exactly what I wanted to be, and it wasn't a farmer. It was quite the opposite. Farming seemed like a very not an appealing profession. And actually, I grew up wanting to be a writer and a journalist and a storyteller. So that's what my first career was. I worked in newspapers and in magazines, the Maui no Hawaiian magazine for quite a while. And farming was something that came later in life. It started with a garden bed and kind of just becoming obsessed with growing food. And that obsession just, pardon the pun, but like grew, you know? I mean, we put our roots down and we just really enjoyed growing food and realized, hey, maybe we could turn this into a business one day. And so that was our plan. In 2017, my husband, my co-founder, we purchased 3 acres in Waiʻehu. And at the time, it was completely overgrown, hundreds of trees. We couldn't even walk the property. The realtor pointed like, well, that's sort of your area that you're purchasing. And so we really didn't know what was underneath all of that. And our long range vision was to start a farm one day. But we couldn't just drop everything and do that. We had to figure out like this transition plan. So I was working in media. My husband was working in the construction industry. And he was able to transition. Half of us was going to transition into this farming thing right before the pandemic. So he left his job, and then the pandemic happened, and I lost my job. So we're sitting there both unemployed with a farm, and I think you guys might remember nobody knew what was going on, but all the places that sold seeds were like selling out. Like I think people were like, I don't know what to do, but growing food seems like kind of a good idea right now. And so that's kind of where we were at. And so really Poli Farms is a pandemic baby. It was something that was incubating before the pandemic, but that was really our push to turn this into a business. And so side note, this is a really important part of the story, when we cleared all of those invasive grasses and trees, and we finally discovered what was underneath all of that, underneath that was terraces for growing kalo. And I still, even just saying that, I get taken back to that moment of seeing that cleared, and you just have this, lo'i after lo'i after lo'i. And so that really kind of firmly planted, sorry with all these, I don't mean it, this is how I talk, I guess. Planted those seeds of what we're doing today. So our focus is native plants and Polynesian plants and canoe plants. And we're taking our harvests and turning them all into value-added products. So we take those and increase their shelf life by turning them into value-added goods. And so that's what we're doing now. And how we're we interface with the visitor industry in a couple different ways. For example, we have some partnerships where, let me back up. So we produce Hawaiian tea made of mamaki and ulu. And we're also doing dried bananas, so like chewy, round bananas. And we're adding to we're coming out with new stuff very, very soon. And so how we're interfacing with the visitor industry is we have our tea in room in some places, or at restaurants, or one resort in particular has kind of a program built around storytelling, and they use our tea kind of as a physical product to show for that. And so it's kind of like a tea time with their cultural advisor. But what I was realizing as you were talking is that a lot of Maui, I mean, but many industries on Maui, even though you might not think you're in the visitor industry, you really are. As a writer, with Maui no Ko'oi, that was kind of the main market, right? Was the visitor industry. My husband, who worked in construction, he was working on a lot of the restaurants and sort of like the high-end resorts and things like that. So he was in the visitor industry, even though I don't think he would think of what he was doing as the visitor industry, but it's just, it's everywhere. And so I think there's so many touch points, even though you might not label yourself as being in the industry. And so that's certainly been our case, because I think, we're farmers, right? We're just kind of in the dirt, being kind of the opposite of this sort of glamorous vacation, kind of scene. But I am seeing now that there are a lot of challenges and opportunities, like you were saying, Kainoa. And so we're just kind of working through all of that and figuring out our place in this industry as a farm.
Thank you, Lehia. Couple things. Because, so maybe this is a two-part question. Talk to us about how you got your tea into the hotels. What was that? Because you haven't been around for a long time. Poli Poli is relatively new. But if any of you are on Instagram, you must follow Poli Poli Farms because it is mind-blowingly good. And I think maybe it was your background in journalism, but it's like you are a social media maven. I mean, what you guys are doing is really, really good. So I want to know about that, but also, you know, mo'olelo and storytelling is just woven through how you approach that interface. And can you talk a little bit about that?
I hate social media, which is so funny you say that. It's a very painful thing, and it's different. It's funny. Okay, so having this journalism background, this storytelling background, people have told me kind of like what you're saying, and I think at certain times I've told myself like, oh, I should be really good at this marketing thing because I have this background. It actually doesn't necessarily translate. Especially because for all those years I was telling other people's stories, you know, going out and interviewing them about what they were doing. So it's really easy to talk about other people. But now, you know, like kind of turning that story inward has been a real challenge. And also, I think for a long time I relied on the storytelling and didn't quite make that leap, that second part that you need, which is the sales part, right? To get them to convert and to actually purchase the product versus just entertaining them here in this story space. So that's actually something I'm working through. But thank you for saying that. I think storytelling is foundational for the kind of marketing and kind of media stuff that we do at Poli Poli Farms. And I think to answer your first question, we're young. We're a very young farm and business, but I think that's why we've seen some success is because of our story. You know, in the visitor industry, we've had a mixed bag of relationships and experiences, some not so great, some super positive. So when it comes to the really positive ones, I think there's a theme that the folks we work with have really resonated with the stories. So it's our product is second, you know, for those relationships. They've really enjoyed kind of like why we exist and the things that we're working to preserve and kind of our general mission. So I think that's where our strongest relationships in the industry have come from is people who are on board with what we're doing, not necessarily just the products that we can, you know, place in their resorts. And so I'll give you one example. Well, I don't know if I'll just keep talking. Yeah. So I'll give you one example. And I won't say specifically who they are because I haven't asked them if I can kind of share this information. But generally speaking, there's a resort that that our products are in, and they take our packaged tea and it's kind of like a welcome gift, and they're able to sort of set the stage for their guests and tell them, kind of give them a primer on Hawaiian culture through our tea. And that client or that partner came to us because the woman just loved our tea and she was using it in her own daily life. And she was at Wailuku Coffee Company, which is one of the places we have our tea. And she was reaching for one of the very last bag, and my friend happened to be in line behind her, and my friend was reaching for the very last bag. It was like a romantic comedy, you know. They're both like, ah, and then they started, you know, and they're like, no, you take it, no, you take it, you know, kind of thing. And then they just started a conversation. I love Poli Poli, you know, just like fangirling over our stuff, and that, you know. My friend, luckily, she was kind of like being a marketing person too, and she's like, oh, you know, where do you, like, she was asking this woman, where do you work? And they just started to kind of build this little friendship and basically convince the woman to work with us. And it's one of our greatest relationships. And so it's really like, it started from her really liking our product versus thinking, oh, well, there's this commodity or there's this product, how can we put it into our business model? It was really like, I like your stuff, how can we work with you? And so those are because there's been a range of relationships. There's been other relationships that start the other way, where they're just looking, how can I take advantage of this product that you have? And maybe extract your story for our gain. And those are the ones that have not worked out.
Is there an example there you want to share?
Again, I can't say names. And let me just say, everything I'm saying is in the spirit of learning, and I'm not, digging on anybody. So if this sounds familiar and you're like, I think she's talking about me, there's still love there. I think these are the kinds of hard conversations we need to have. But yeah, there's been the opposite where try not to be too specific. I can think of one instance where there was a cultural week, I guess, planned at one of the resorts. And so they had something planned for each day. And so they wanted us to fill the spot for one day. And we get there. And so they didn't really ask too much about us. There was no kind of pilina building, no relationship building. I didn't feel like they really knew who we were. Just that we had this product that sort of fit the slot that they were looking to fill. And so we get there, and there was hardly anyone there. I don't even know if they promoted it. We took, at least half a day off to be there, to drive. I won't say where it was. To drive far away to get there, to set up our booth and our table, and we're ready. And we look at the program, and they spelt our names wrong, things like that, small things. And there was hardly anybody who came. I think they might have told people, like some of their own employees, to like go down and like see, but it didn't feel like they really promoted it. It was just they needed to fill this slot so they could say, hey, we have this week of cultural kind of touch points. And then during that event, one of the employees came and basically said, hey, can we use your product? We're hosting a bunch of media. We have a media group coming. I think it'd be really great to have your product. And just basically was like, can I just have it for free? And in return, you'll get publicity. And so we were getting paid in publicity. And I think that's what happens a lot of times, is that in my experience, publicity has been the carrot that they put out there. And I feel that publicity should be the extra thing. That shouldn't necessarily be, I feel like I am just like trying not to step on my own, say anything wrong, but do you know what I mean? So I feel like a lot of times, what is, like, for me, that would make a really big difference as a small farm to have our for somebody to purchase our products. And so I feel like that would be like the baseline way to come. I'll just stop there. I feel like I don't want to offend if the person knows who I'm.
Who here has not been offered publicity, or you can use it in your portfolio and not something that you can actually buy new clothes for your kids or put food on the table or pay bills? Like everyone's just an Instagram model looking for the next thing. And I'm not going, but I don't think you're walking on thin ice here. I think every single small business owner in the world, and it's not just hotels, it's not even large businesses. Small business owners do this to each other. Photographers and models or clothing designers. And maybe if there's three of us, that I'm a clothing designer, model, photographer, and we all decide to get together and do a shoot, that's one thing. But for a large company to be saying, oh, well, you'll get publicity, in my experience, that never actually, it doesn't actually do anything. But meanwhile, the per unit sales would do something for you.
I have another quick example, actually.
Please.
So in another case, being paid in publicity, where we were told, if you're in our business and if you're working with us, you'll get this amazing publicity. So therefore, we think instead of paying the full price for your product, you should give us this price. And honestly, we were losing money at that price that they were demanding. And over time, I realized, yes, we are in the visitor industry, but we're very much a part of our community. Like, that's our number one, like, for us, is our community. And then I realized, I'm like, I'm not giving any sort of discount to our nonprofit groups or our neighbors or Hawaiian communities that live just down the road who really should get this la'au, should really get this medicine. Why am I giving a discount, to the people who really can't? I know they can pay, and so that has been a struggle for me. Is like, why am I sort of giving up a piece of our mana, really, as a business and a farm, to people who have the resources to reciprocate that mana through the form of, sometimes that means financially, to actually pay for it. And then meanwhile, we're disregarding and not giving those same advantages to our community members. So those are things that we are thinking through right now. First of all, we don't have it figured out. This is very much a therapy session for me today as I kind of work through all of these things. But I think a lot of times we as Poli Poli Farm have catered to the visitor industry on the backs of our community, And so I think that's something I wanted to kind of say, no more visitor industry stuff. But like I was saying earlier, I mean, it's just here, and we have to figure out where the opportunities are rather than just complain about the challenges. And so it's a work in progress for us, but those are some of the things that go through my mind. Is like, who are we giving this la'au to, and is it truly a regenerative model? And it hasn't always felt like that in the visitor industry.
Yeah.
But there's
Thank
good
you.
stuff too.
Well, and thank you, Lehia. And I think it's so important, even though these are sensitive issues, and we have many different people, both, in person and in Zoom, that represent different segments of this, to actually just have the discussion is important. And sometimes that's a conversation about what is a product worth, what is the business model that I've based my business on. And those are things where other people, and I'm looking at like Wayne, and we've got, SBDC and SBA, and like different ways of looking at the back end of, if there is a young entrepreneur, owner, operator that is looking into getting into a business and asking themselves questions of, what do I charge? What is this worth? What is my time worth? What is this product worth? Those are all conversations that are not necessarily cultural in nature. They're business in nature, they're financial in nature, but they affect how you're able to move forward. And when you think about where's Poli Poli Farms in 5 years, in 10 years, how does it interact? Those are all really big things. And before we move on, I want to reference also, and I think if a lot of people here, we see everyone going to Japan because the yen and all this is low. And I didn't realize, like, the majority of travel over there is Japanese. It's internal, right? Because they've never been to Tokyo or whatever it may be. And when we talk about the visitor industry, let us not forget how much of it is what I would call domestic travel within Hawaii. Because when you have a school group come to your school, whether that's, Kamehameha III or Nahi'ena from Lahaina because they didn't have a campus, or from Waimanalo or Kauai, that is visitor too, right? Local people traveling, Kama'aina travel is also visitor industry. If they are not with you day in and day out, they're a tourist, they're a visitor to your place. And that's really, kind of important to acknowledge as well. It's because I fail to think about that as well. I only think about the people coming 2,500 miles from over the ocean, but not from across the channel or over the mountain, and that's a big part of it. And it also is a big part of the readership of Maui no Kauai magazine. That's my segue. You like that?
Good.
So we're going to go to our third presenter, or third panelist, Maile Kekona. Sorry, guys, I switched it up on you. Is that okay? Fantastic. Maile is a seasoned sales executive at Maui no Ka'oi magazine, leveraging over 2 decades of experience in business, finance, economic development. She's worked in organizational leadership across multiple states. With the last 10 years on Maui, Maile's developed a deep understanding of local economic needs and opportunities. With extensive experience in strategic planning, finance, and marketing, Maile is committed to honoring Hawaiian culture and values. And Maile only recently joined Maui no Ka'oi magazine a couple months ago or so.
Correct.
So, and I know that you are more than also, just being at Maui no Ka'oi. So feel free, please share a little bit about what you're doing now. But we had a great pre-conversation just about your unique perspective on this. And please help me welcome Maile Kekona.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. I'm just really lucky to be up here. Everything happens for a reason. And whatever that reason is, I'm so pleased to be able to be with you. Like Kainoa said, I'm relatively new to the Maui no Ka'oi team, not new to Maui, and certainly not new to being Hawaiian. It's very hard to be raised in Hawaiian culture in Michigan, being a Detroit Lions fan, but I was. And I make a killer meatloaf, and my chicken long rice is always soggy. So, you just got to bear with me. But that being said, I was born and raised and educated on the mainland. I did not move back to Hawaii until I was an adult and a mother. And at that point, I remember going to my older sister's track meet in, I guess the politically correct word is inner city school. And I was 7 years younger than her, so I was quite young. And I was asleep in the bleachers, and I woke up, and my dad was very dark-skinned. And I woke up, and I saw a lot of dark skins. And I said, "Oh, Dad, how's all these Hawaiians?" And people all over the crowd laughed because, suffice it to say, there weren't any except us. So it was very interesting. I had a lot of friends ask how my dad's hair got to be so straight. So it was very interesting to grow up in a place where people had no idea that Hawaiian was a people and not just a state. So I bring that perspective here because, believe it or not, with a name like Maile Kekona and a look like this, that I spent very much of my life coming home being a tourist. And I spent a lot of my life doing things and going places that all my cousins made fun of because they don't go do that stuff, but watch Maile, she going, because I loved it. And I wanted to be at all the beaches that none of my family wanted to be at. So I learned those things kind of the hard way. But I value all of it because being born and educated, I went to a private business school. And so the models that I learned were not necessarily sustainable. I think there's a generation of us in business, and I think I'm just old enough to come from a point where it was sort of revenue and growth by any means necessary. And that was your job. And to look at it any other way was absolutely at the expense of the bottom line. And if you didn't fall in, your services were no longer needed, right? I worked for ABN AMRO and was one of about 1,500 of us that got laid off in the Great Recession. So bringing all of those things to the table to have the opportunity to pivot. And when Chris and I first discussed this, I was very clear that the reputation of Maui no Ka'oi magazine being what it was, over 20 years, very curated readership, relatively luxury lifestyle on Maui. And without going too far down that road, for those of you that don't know, the ownership and the publisher has changed hands sort of since COVID fire season. And there is a portion that will absolutely maintain the integrity, almost the nostalgia of what the magazine came to represent, while also recognizing the need to pivot just a bit and to recognize the need for sustainability. It needs to continue. When we were talking about being able to tell the stories, now we got to sell them. And That's where I come in. I'm not the storyteller, but I am absolutely this is why it matters for you. This is why we don't need to figure out a way to give people discounts. We need to be very, very sure that we communicate and hold a value and make it worth every penny. And the more that we treat one another and invest in one another in those ways, then everyone else has the ability to do what they want to do with their extra. It's not up to us to determine what other people need to do and operate. It is up to us to do the very best that we can with what we have and what we've been called to do. I'm here today because when asking, we've opened the door on being a little bit transparent. So when you open the door on what is even regenerative tourism, what even is that? What are you talking about? Like all this kind of pie in the sky, frou-frou stuff everybody's been talking about forever. Sounds just like a big waste of taxpayer money, frankly. Well, but for rooms like this and organizations like this and commitment from people like us and like you, they'll be right. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want anyone else to be right about how something's not going to work without a better solution. So when we were having a planning conversation on what this looks like, the what would you call her? The mediator of our conversation, she shared Hawaiian Navigator kind of thought principle that is 1 degree of change and time takes us to a completely different destination. So we are not here today to do a 180 because it's not going to happen. But if we sit up here and act like we're going to do a 180 and then sit around next month and say, how'd it go? Pretty sure we're all going to say it didn't. So just the 1 degree. So today I'm here because I know that there is nothing else that can give our Maui industry more exposure to the right people that care about or want to learn how to care about or how to care better about Maui than Maui no Ko'oi magazine. And the only way we're going to continue to make that true is by getting the stories told that need to be told by the people that need to tell them. And then aligning ways for those things to be walked out. I want to be able to tell the story with gifted people and then align them with experiences, with food, with opportunities, with donations in ways that make the most sense and appeal to the most people. So that's why I come here, to offer that regenerative tourism simply becomes a new or additional filter through which we recognize the opportunity to shift.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Maile,
Yes.
when I think about, and I raised this with you earlier, when I think about the magazine, as a business owner, okay, I can get in that magazine in 2 ways. One of them I have to pay for. That's ad space. Some ads look better than others. Some ads are grabbing. The other way I get in there is by doing something really cool that your writers want to talk about. They hear about it somewhere, they talk about. So speaking from a business owner's perspective, how do I get the cover?
Wow. There are
Everyone
a couple
wants
of
the
ways.
cover.
That is a great question, and it's absolutely true. We are here to start defining that because I don't want to say, let me put it this way, we don't want to miss the mark. And what we don't want to do as a magazine is to tell the story everyone else is telling. We don't want to tell the same story that nobody else cares about. So the thing about media and the thing about the magazine is there's a fine line. Speaking of social media, which absolutely follow Poli Poli. I cried twice in like a 12-minute scroll. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. But there's 2 things to consider, and I'm going to assume as a journalist this is part of the concern with social media. It's very popular. It's very easy. It's very accessible. The barrier of entry is very low. You also have no idea where your message is falling to. That speaks to trendy, right? Things are very trendy. You see something, sometimes it's, holy smokes, this thing was eavesdropping on my conversation with my kid, borders all the way into the line of, why is this even in my feed? Frustratingly so. Like, I'm just trying to find something and I keep seeing this stupid thing that has nothing to do with me. So it's very trendy. And that works for some people and some of their goals, depending on what you're looking for. Then there's an element of timeless. And it takes something to become an anchor in every community. I won't bogart that for Maui, but absolutely is true in Maui. To be an anchor here means something. You cannot walk in and call yourself an anchor to a room full of people from here and get them to believe it if it's not true. Make sense? Any small town, I'm sure, wherever you're from. So the short answer to how do you get on the cover is, let's figure that out together. Because you're right, people have to talk about it, people have to care about it, and there has to be something made and something progressing. And I would love for us to be able to work together to have these incredible stories that are trendy because this culture has made them timeless. And now all of a sudden, everybody's starting to recognize that maybe the Hawaiians knew what they were talking about. And Hawaiians being a very collective term for those of us that you know who you are and you know what you've contributed to those stories. And frankly, to be very transparent, another way is when you advertise. Because sometimes when you advertise, people will literally call the magazine and say, who is that? And, you know, I never heard of them. Where are they? I've been coming over and over and over again and never heard of them before. Well, is that because you never looked, right? And so I love this idea of rediscover. And I think I'm going to take that back to the publisher, that there are so many things that we've got 7,000 people coming off of a plane today, maybe that have never been here before. So we can't just assume what everybody already knows, because they don't, or we would all be full. Last thing that I'll say is when you are looking at being the story, being aware that our magazine, I wouldn't call it cerebral. We're very much want to invoke stories that bring emotions, that make people want to know and want to care. So you may have some incredible research, and there are a lot of incredible publications that are geared for that. Ours is very much for people who love, who are returning, or are even potentially considering Hawaii as a home to come to or to come back to. That's how to come in our magazine.
Thank you. And talking about circular and referencing Lehia, who once was a journalist and is now a farmer, I think it's also important to note when we talk about jobs and whatnot, we need good local writers, copy editors. We need that whole gamut, which is still somewhat visitor industry, although we might not think about it as that. And I know there's a lot of Maui youth out there wondering, like, where's my next step? Maybe they're farming now, but they could be journalism later, do the reverse. Thank you, Maile. Our last panelist is Brittany Alejo Fischel. Brittany is the founder of Haku Maui, another great Instagram as well, if I may add. Located in the heart of Makawao town since 2017, Haku Maui offers fresh lei and na mea Hawaii, that means like Hawaiian things, stuffs, as well as immersive cultural lei workshops with the goal of perpetuating lei in Hawaiian culture. Brittany has most notably been featured in several newspapers and magazines, as well as television shows, including the Paris Film Festival. What? I didn't know that. She was nominated in 2023 as Pacific Edge Magazine's Native Hawaiian Business of the Year. Brittany is a cohort graduate of both Mana Up Hawaii and Hale Kua Hawaii. She also currently serves as the vice president on the board for the nonprofit Maui Growers and Floriculture Collective. Please help me welcome Brittany.
Aloha. Okay, how do I follow all of that? Everyone did so good. There was so much of what I was hearing that I was really resonating with as a native Hawaiian local small business owner. For our story with Haku Maui, we started basically in our garage in 2017, making and selling lei. I went off to college and graduated. I came home. I worked at various places within the tourism industry and was working at a resort through hotel management, and realized that it wasn't really maybe for me. And in that time, took some time to go back to our roots and who we are and what we know, and realized, I think, what I was missing all along in lei making is the connection to time and space, to place, to aina, and to people. And through that, we started making and selling lei, and realized that I was gaining more satisfaction, I think, in that than I have ever felt in doing these, like, dealing with millionaires at the resorts and things like that, and that appreciation. And so it really was a heartfelt thing that we went with. And in that time, we were looking at the space of lei making. It wasn't what it is today. I mean, today it's much more big. It's seen everywhere. It was kind of a newer thing at that time as far as making and selling lei and making that your career and your business. And we looked at what was being offered with lei making and lei workshops. And it was nothing more than meet in the hotel lobby at 2:00, stringing purple orchid lei with little to no Hawaiian cultural background. No. This was our time. We wanted to take a stand. And so that's how our workshops started. I would pack up everything in my truck and head to wherever you were, if it was your hotel room, your house, your baby shower, your wedding, any place we could go where people would listen to us and listen to our story and what lei is truly about in Hawaiian culture. And there was a lot. It was a lot of work. My family was behind me. My mom is here today in the crowd, which I'm very happy about. She works with us to this day at Haku Maui, and she's the first face you see when you enter our lei shop. So we as a family have put everything we know into Haku Maui. After about a year of doing that with our workshops, we realized that we need a home. We need a hale for Haku Maui. We want you to feel like you're coming to our home to make lei with us. This is the story that we know. And so we set out to find a place. We're from Makawao town. And of course, that was a dream of ours to be there. And we found a place that was really tucked away. If any of you have been to our location before, it is behind in the back. Okay, so we took a chance. It was also 3 to 4 times bigger than our budget that we had, but it was month to month. So I talked with my family and we decided, okay, we're gonna take a chance and really give it our all. And if we fail, we know that we tried everything we could. Now we've been there for about 7 years and have expanded. We also have a separate building in front of our workshop, which is our lei shop, where we offer all of that, the fresh lei. You can pick up your lei orders, place your lei orders, shop many different local businesses that we have in our lei shop, and check in for your lei workshop, where we take you to our lei workshop that's in the back, where we spend time together. So in doing so, within the tourism industry, we have had many ups and many downs. Okay, it's been a very big roller coaster, but also one that we feel what it really comes down to is knowing your core values, who you are as a business and as a person, and what you're willing to kind of bend with, and what are your non-negotiables for how you're going to operate this. I find that when you go against that, and when you kind of take, oh, maybe that offer looks good, maybe they're, dangling that carrot in front of you, and it looks kind of good, and you take those offers, and you feel depleted, you feel taken advantage of. It doesn't feel you're not own, and so it takes time, though. You have to kind of go through these processes sometimes to figure out where you want to be and where you want to take it. But then you have these moments where you find people and meet them, and it is like literally gold. Like, it is the best thing ever. They see you, they understand you, and you as with them as well. And so those are the kind of the moments that we look for. But yeah, I think that's kind of it. I could go on and on. One more thing, sorry, I do want to say, is that when we started our lei making and lei workshops, of course the hotels, were like, oh my gosh, we need you here. Come over here. Do these workshops. And we were offering them, right? We became the 2:00 lei workshop in the hotel lobby. And what we found, I would say even maybe closer towards COVID, was that if we go there to the resort, they don't leave the resort. And they don't come to Makawao town. They have maybe come to Maui 20 times, have never been to upcountry Maui. And so we also took a stand and decided that we're no longer going to do that. We're going to operate and have our workshops only be at our location in Makawao town with the hopes and prayers that they come to Makawao and come and experience what we have in our hale that we have created and spend their dollars also in our town supporting our community. So that was one of the really big decisions that we made as well. And we've been pretty successful at it.
Thank you. So much of what I have seen from your business is that understanding of the shared community space. So bringing people up to Makawao, they're not just going to go to one place. They're going to go throughout. And you partner with a lot of either similar businesses and you do a lot of that kind of community work. That just seems a part of who you are, maybe what you've learned from your ohana. Can you speak to that? Like, because it just seems very natural for you to ID these things. They go, oh, I'm going to partner with this, with that. And in doing so, you uplift both businesses. One example would be your new logo. Well, not new anymore, but and maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So I think one thing you quickly realize in owning a small business is that you cannot do this alone. So having employees, okay, yes, that's one route that you can take. But also, what can you do to support and uplift each other in this and create something that is so beautiful for someone to experience? I always say that, yes, we have a small business, but we want to have a big impact and we want you to feel it. And so through every element that we have with Haku Maui, every story that we tell, we want to focus on that also through our collaborations. And so even with our logo, we worked with Vailani Artates. She owns Artistry 8. She's an amazing designer. And we waited 6 years to have a logo. We were working with people that couldn't really grasp what we're doing. You would kind of work with the designer and then you'd get the stereotypical hibiscus with monstera, with something like that, that doesn't really tell the story of what we do. We don't even use those in lei. So it was a little bit hard, but things like that. And so what I found is that these businesses that you align with, the relationship comes through an organic way. I mean, sometimes you seek people out, but a lot of the times it comes through passing or meeting people over time, and then life changes. I met Lehia a long time ago through the magazine, and now she has her farm. And it's so funny because we actually just started a conversation about collaborating and what that would look like. And so yeah, it's important. And I think it also can be beneficial for everyone if it's the right partnership. One thing that is important to ask yourself in collaboration is, do our values align? I think it's very important to stick with that and remember to go back to that as much as you can, because you want to make sure that it's something that works. I also see Megan in the crowd, and I met her a very long time ago with Makoa Quest, and now she works with the Maui Visitors Bureau, and she's helped us a lot throughout the way, and you just never know how these connections will come back and time again.
Okay, so I don't want to but have you guys actually, I want to know about this collab. Okay, because this could be like a live hackathon, right? Could develop something that will make the cover story of Maui no Ko'oi. right here
okay,
on
let's
stage. Have you guys thought about it? You don't have to spill the beans, or is this just something you just thought about right here, right now?
No, so actually we started this conversation a while ago, not too long ago, but a few weeks maybe. I had actually been a part of a Go Farm Hawaii Zoom meeting that Lehia was speaking on, and I haven't really seen her in years, but I have seen her on Instagram and her products everywhere and seen her grow, and just to hear her speak, it was so refreshing. It was something that I needed to hear, and she had talked about community and collaboration, and so I felt compelled to send her a message and just see if this was something she would be interested in, because our workshops, we would love to offer something that tells their story as well. Maybe we can figure out how we can work together. So yeah, that kind of opened the conversation. But then your life happens, and then we took a pause, and then
I got COVID.
Yeah. This is me trying to not tell everybody she had
That's
COVID.
okay. I'm good now, I think. I'm for sure good. It was weeks ago.
Yeah. So basically that happened, and then we were working off island for Haku Maui and just got back, and then we found out we were going to be on this panel, and I saw her name on here, of course, and I was like, okay, here we go. This is divine, right? And then she messaged me. She goes, oh my God, you're on the panel. I was like, yes, girl. So it kind of, it happened in a very nice, organic way. And we even talked about it a little bit today, but we will keep you posted.
I definitely have something. It's so interesting to hear your kind of version of all of this. So yeah, that's certainly what happened. It was like oh my gosh, I talk about seeds all the time. I was going to say the seed was planted with the Go Farm talk. And the topic of that was culture in marketing. So I think that's probably, it's not a conversation that is had often. So it's probably really refreshing in that way to just hear about marketing in a culturally appropriate way. And so you reached out, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, the values are totally aligned. This is great. And I started thinking immediately brainstorming and off of what I remember from, 7 years ago, maybe, when I did a story about Haku Maui. And so that was my last memory, kind of that close touch point, right? I've been seeing you on social media, seeing everything you're doing with Mana Up. So I thought I was like, I know this business already, right? I'm gonna start brainstorming. And then I had to pause, and I was like, no, this is backwards. We need to create a deeper pilina first before so deeper relationship, right? A deeper connection and understanding. And so I was kind of putting the cart before the horse there. And so I said, okay, wait, no. Can we meet? And actually, I think I had suggested sometimes later on this week. So this is all very timely for us, but I think that brings up a really important point. As a business owner, and I think a lot of business owners will resonate with this, you're thinking of your customer, right? And what is the problem that they have, and how can your product or your service solve that problem for them? Really, if you're doing it right, you should really be thinking of your customers first, not just, look at this cool thing I have. It's so cool, so you should buy it. That's not it. It's how is it solving something for that person? It should be no different with any partnership, right? So I need to come in, I need to slow it down and go, okay, Britt, what are you up to these days? What does Haku Maui look like right now? And what is the vision that people can't even see right now? I need to ask those questions first so that I can see what you need, what kind of solutions you need. And then from there's probably going to be a lot of solutions, right? And then I can come, and then I can start thinking about our business. Once I understand what you need first, and I can see, that aligns with what we need too, right? And I think that's the basis for a really healthy long-term relationship, right? This reciprocity versus, I don't know, it would be easy to go, okay, me as Poli, I have these bags of tea that I'm trying to move and to sell. So, I think it would be good if she could just have them in her workshops, or something like that. But that only serves me, and maybe it serves you, but I don't know that. And so my first job, and I think both of our first job, is to figure out what the other person needs and then see where that aligns. Because oftentimes in my experience, it's not aligned. It's only one, it's this uneven thing. And I've gone into relationships like that once, but there is no, it's not a long-term relationship. That's never worked in building a long-term relationship. And so I would love to build a long-term relationship, but we got to go slow, right? I mean, we got to, and I was going fast.
I go
was so
fast too,
excited.
though.
I was just so excited. I'm like, yes, this matches. But I think really trying to understand, just like we try and understand our customers, understanding the people that you're partnering with too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So we still have lots to talk about, but how perfect that we came together here. Yeah.
We're going to stay tuned for your guys' collab. We're looking forward to that. We've been zoomed in. I'm going to bring us out again, and we do kind of like 50,000 foot level view here. And we can all speak to this if we want to. You don't have to jump in if you don't want to on certain things. But I do want to go back to Lisa, because I think more than anyone, especially in your role as at MHLA, you have a bigger understanding of the industry at large. And naturally, when we look across the islands, every island is going through something a little different. Our numbers are drastically lower than they were a year ago. Some of us existing businesses are looking how to increase the amount of people coming in whatever segment we're in. Some of us, though, are looking for how to get a better client, a better customer. Can you just maybe share just what is one piece of advice or something that you think every business owner, small, medium, large, should be thinking about right now, for Maui specifically?
That's a great question, because when I was listening to the two of them speak, and it resonated with me also in that we, small businesses need to educate as well, right? When we step into that relationship, and a lot of times our hotels are hiring people that don't understand the culture. They don't understand the love and the mana that goes into everything you do. And so it's an opportunity to educate them and explain, well, I'm not going to come to your property and do a lei making class, but here's my business, and let's have them come and even provide a shuttle up to, the lei making class. So as we look forward and we are seeing trending down in numbers, it's even more important that all of us come together and provide those opportunities to educate for more collaboration. There is going to be less visitors. I don't see it as a detriment. I see it as an opportunity. Let's embrace those lower numbers, and let's also figure out a way to make them quality visitors. And again, education, education, education. During the pandemic, I was with the mayor's office, and our big thing was pre-messaging and really pushing that. This is what you have to do to get into the island. This is how many shots you have to have and all of that. But we kind of stepped away from that. And I'm a big believer in continuing that pre-messaging before you come and giving them ideas of what their itinerary is going to look like, and ideas of places where they shouldn't be going, and ideas of how to visit certain areas. And these are the businesses that are all run by people who live here and support their families here and tell those stories. So I see it as an opportunity to create a place for our quality visitors that we want to have, and it all isn't tied in with education.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that? Okay. Perfect. This topic has come up a few times. Britt, you talked about being in the hotels and then recognizing aid. That's kind of not where we want to be, and pulling out. Lehia, you have some products inside particular resorts, and I think a lot of us, especially young or new businesses, that's in our mind, we think about that as the golden egg. You know, having a big contract with a big resort, and we've got something in every room. So let's talk a little bit about that, because for some of us, that can be a really good thing. That is divided, and I'll just throw it out there, between, you know, regular guests and then also corporate work. And I know that you know, the group work is an important thing, and I'm not sure whether you've dealt with that too. But let's dig into that a bit, and maybe some words of advice to young or new business owners or longtime business owners trying to get into the hotels. How did it work for you? Who did you speak to? What would you do if you had to do it again? We'll start with anyone, but
I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating myself. It's about pilina, right? It's about those relationships. And pilina is so powerful. Like, I can't even, I don't have enough time to like talk about just how important and critical that is in business, especially in Hawaii, especially on Maui. Another word for it is, networking maybe? But that's not it at all. I mean, that's like maybe the closest sort of like translation into business speak, networking or social capital, right? But it's pilina, and that's something that is much more layered and rich. So that's what kind of, for me, our secret sauce is pilina and this connection. And so the best relationships that we have in the visitor industry have started with that really deep pilina. And like I said, it takes a lot longer sometimes to develop that. And I will say, so one person I'm thinking of in particular is a cultural advisor at one of the resorts. So she's Native Hawaiian. Another person I'm thinking of at a different resort who we work with, she's not Native Hawaiian, but she gets it. You know, she has those values. So you don't need to be any sort of ethnicity. I think you just have to embody those values. And so kind of going back to what you were saying, Britt, like having those shared values and taking the time to understand if you guys really do have those shared values. I've had other experiences on the other side of things where the person has told me, I said, how'd you find out about us? And, you know, what brought you to us? And he goes, oh, I Googled you. And that's probably not, you know, if it stops there, I mean, that tells me that they were looking for, again, to fill a puka that they needed to fill, right? And so as we're getting a little bit more experience, you start to hear those things and you start to see these patterns, but it's always kind of like, you know, the slow relationships that are gonna kind of last, and in our experience have been the best and the least extractive, really, because they support what you do, and your product is kind of like a side note to that, and the product is the vehicle to continue to fulfill our mission, right? And they understand that, so it's not just this commodity sort of thing for us. Actually, that word commodity, it makes me think of something else. So I kind of mentioned earlier, like mana, right? Like everything is mana, right? This energy. And in a way, like money is a form of mana. It's a representation of that, like a physical representation of the energy that somebody might put into something. And so with that, right, like I struggle sometimes being Native Hawaiian and having certain cultural values and certain kind of funky feelings about money and business, because there's a lot of trauma that came with business and extractive kind of business models. And so being a Native Hawaiian business owner, sometimes it seems to sort of clash. But one thing that's really helped me, I'm kind of not answering your question anymore, my train of thought went here. One thing that's really helped me to feel okay with being a business and like asking for money in exchange for, frankly, the most special thing, these la'au lapa'au, right? These native healing plants that have traditions that go back generations, right? It's something that I've Kamuela Inos. I don't know if any of you folks know Kamu, but he's just so wise. And he said, how do you turn money into mana? Like, that's my challenge as a Native Hawaiian business owner. How do I turn the revenue that we get for our products into the kind of energy, so take that money energy and turn it into the kind of energy that we want to see in our community and on our aina and things like that. And so for me, I think that has really helped me kind of be a little bit more fierce about making sure that the money goes into this machine that we're trying to build, because I know that the output is the stuff that I really believe in. And so I'm kind of like subtracting us from the equation, right? That it's not about us becoming richer. I definitely chose the wrong profession if I was trying to be rich. Farming is tough to make it in that way. But, and I think, so with that understanding, now when I go into potential partnership meetings or, talking business, I'm like, it's, like you were saying, like the non-negotiables, I'm like, no, it has to be this ho'i, right? This return back into the kinds of things that we're trying to create for our community and for our aina, if that makes sense. And so with that kind of shift in mentality, I think it's a lot easier to go into these partnership conversations and fight for that, at least in my head. I don't know if you've if that resonates at all with you.
I have a few things to kind of add to that and to kind of say as well. So when we talk about this exchange, right, and this exchange for money or payment for your product or your service, it all goes back to how we operate in a Hawaiian worldview. How do we see the energy exchange? There was always an exchange of energy for your product, for your service, for your time, for your fish, for your kalo. There was always something to be shared. This is why when you go places, Hawaiians, we want to give. We will give you everything for free and we will just deal with it later, and maybe we're going to suffer a little bit because we won't give too much. This is how we kind of get to that point. But we need to kind of understand and be more accepted, have bigger acceptance, I think, with the fact that the exchange in the time and place that we live in now is money. And we need to make a living and we need to provide for our families. And how are we going to do that in this place and feel okay about it? So that's one kind of hurdle that we have to work. I feel like for me, I had to very much work through it and be okay with knowing my worth and how much I want to charge for this, because it took so much time and people have no clue where I had to go to Ohi and how, all of these things. And you're just working so hard for this one lei, and I hope you love it. And thank you, so it's very interesting. So that's one thing. But then also in talking about getting your products in the hotels, right? So I feel like there's a few different things. If we're talking about the cost of living and how things are right now, we need to make money to survive. And so if there's an opportunity to get your products in the hotel, you can kind of see, does it align? We always go back to that. But also look at your product as a whole and your branding and your marketing, your information that you're sharing on your product. This is an opportunity for you to get your product and your name in front of someone that may have never heard about you. And so even if it's something very small, it's that opportunity to do that. And hopefully you can draw them in through that experience and bring them closer to you so that they can experience Haku Maui, come and meet our family, make lei and all of that. But I try to look at it as an avenue to kind of segue to that if we can. But then also in building relationships with the people in the hotel industry, I would say that there's two parts to that, right? There's the part of growing up in Hawaii and then you see them and then now 20 years later, we somebody in the industry and we reconnect and we're like, oh my gosh, how can we work together? And then we try and build that relationship from there. But then there's a part where it is an email from someone you've never met or vice versa, right? And so how can we kind of navigate that? But it's up to you to seek and ask the right questions and see where you fit in that role. And sometimes they won't email you. So guess what? You got to get up and you got to walk over there and you got to walk in and make yourself known and make your presence heard. And because you have something to share that's important and of value and you know it. And so even though it's so hard to be like, come, we're not solving the problem right away, but like, this is really cool and we're doing this, but mean it and feel it and show them that it is and it's important and we want you to understand because there's education behind this product. There's meaning, there's kinolau, there's all of these elements of Hawaiian culture that we can share with you. So I'm very passionate about it and I feel like we want to be the majority in that space. Why not? Why can't we? So speak up, I would say.
Thank you. That was, you can clap for that. Was that your mom? Great. Well, and I bring up the resorts because obviously, listen, every room, there's a Maui no Ko'oi, hopefully in every room, right? But there's also toiletries, there's dry goods, there's beverages, there's snacks, there's so many opportunities to get in there, right? And there's a lot of compromise that needs to happen. And for us, we're not good at compromise. As humans, we not. It's this way or not, but a discount, a bulk, a this and a that. Those are things that are kind of something that we all kind of need to work through. So speaking of that, and someone brought this question up, I think I would love to hear from each one of you, because when we talk about these terms, right, first it was sustainable tourism, now it's regenerative, circular economy comes up a lot. We see bright lights, we see advancement in certain areas, right? Ag is one of them, right? We're reducing our amount of imported goods. We see, we could bulk what you do with Haku Maui into sort of the advancement of Hawaiian cultural traditions, whether that's lei or hula or mele or so many other things. But where are the gaps? If we're talking about a real circular economy, you needed a graphic designer. You found a Maui girl, native Hawaiian graphic designer who's absolutely incredible to do that, right? You could have gone 99 designs and you did, these other ones, Fiverr and whatnot, but it didn't fit. And then so you just put a link in the chain of a circular economy for your business, right? And whether it's sourcing of flowers or other materials, and we sort of all do that. But because you all represent different segments, and out here are different segments, where are those gaps? Like, where's that glaring, we don't have a glass foundry. We're not making glass bottles over here, but we used to. We don't grow wheat on Maui anymore. So if we want to make bread, that wheat has got to come from elsewhere. But back in the day, we actually exported wheat from Makawao and Hali'imaile to California, right? So there's a gap in this circular economy. What are the gaps that you see from your perspective that somebody, a potential business owner, entrepreneur, or existing business can branch into another line, a gap that there's an opportunity to fill? I'd love to hear from all four of you with this.
I have one. So our biggest gap, I would say, or hurdle that we face within our industry is sourcing locally grown flowers here on Maui and throughout the Hawaiian Islands. It is very, very hard. It's one thing are the seasons that we face for lei flowers and for flowers in general. A lot of it is that it's also maybe on the cusp of something newer, a newer sort of industry. Cut flowers it's a huge industry, right? This right here, cut flowers. These can be cut and sent all over the world. They're a lot hardier. Flowers for lei making, it's a little bit harder. They're smaller. It's a little bit more tedious. From the time you pick to sew to sell, you have maybe 2 days. So you better be on it. And sometimes longer, but it just depends on the flower. And also facing things like the weather and the environment that we go through, the land itself, flooding, wind, things like that. And how can we kind of help our farmers? So we deal a lot within the ag industry as well. We're also facing the purple orchid lei. I know I've said it earlier, but we're facing a competition with that, right? This is a flower that is grown in another country and sent here pre-sown, ready for you to hand them out. And this has become the lei of Hawaii. This is what people know Hawaii, right? They see this purple orchid lei and they connect it to us, but it has no connection to us. And so how can we shift the narrative? In order for us to do that, we need more farmers and we need more people growing lei flowers. How can we compete? If you think about all of these hotels and luau, people checking in, every person receives that lei. How can we replace that with something that is grown here? So this is something like a collaborative effort where we all need to work together to increase this crop, I would say, and this farm time and things like that, and so that people can work together to grow and make locally sourced lei.
I think for us, we're not a farmer, but we're absolutely looking for seed growers, and that's the storytellers. We had a brief conversation about wanting people who truly live the culture. Your dad said, not just read about it, and can't just study it and there now you know it, you live it. And absence of living it, you don't get it. And if you don't get it, you can't share it. And so it's sort of that chicken or the egg conversation in a lot of our industries is who can you bring on to your team to replicate and duplicate what you do? And there's the knowledge, and then there's the ability to communicate that. And so I think that's, whether it's the younger generation or kind of any of us looking at that second or maybe even third career life, is the stories that you know and your capability to share what you do. Find a way that fits and connect people and having relationships with people. I know when I first came to the magazine, a lot of my very good friends don't even necessarily know what I'm doing because the focus is not on let's get you an ad in the magazine. It's how have you been since X and Y and Z, and what's business look like for you, and what goal do you want? Because all of those are completely dependent on what I need to know if I can provide for them, and if I cannot, to help redirect that conversation in a way that's fruitful for everyone. And I know that's what we're looking for, is how to source more things that are true to Maui and to tell stories from a perspective that is more than just necessarily culturally American. But that we have this entire big world and indigenous communities all over the place. To find commonalities that we can connect with takes digging a little bit deeper with everyone we come in contact with, because I might not have a single friend that has land to grow plumeria or to grow whatever it is to support any of these things. They might not have a single retail outlet to put any of these products, but they might know someone who knows someone. And I think that's part of this, what this relationship grows, and maybe what we need is more relationships full of people who want to ask more questions than they want to provide answers for. And I think that's probably very similar to what we're looking for in our ideal visitor, is people who come here saying, the only thing I know is that I don't know enough yet, and I can't wait to learn more.
Thank you. And we'll keep on, gaps in the circular economy, opportunities that you see someone can fill.
I think maybe my answer might be kind of more general and high level, but I think it touches everything, which is like this mentality and this way of thinking, right? So going back to my other response about like relationships and partnerships that have really worked, when I think about those people, who they are as individuals, not as their title on their business card, but just who that person is when they clock out even, right? That person, right, not that job title, fits the values that we're looking for. So I would say that, like, I feel like there is a gap in really understanding these Hawaiian values, whether you're Hawaiian or not, and how that can relate to business. It's not some fluffy extra sort of thing. It's super foundational, and it's built on millennia of R&D. I mean, this is not anything new, right? And so when we're talking about being in Hawaii, we should tap into the wisdom of the people who have lived here successfully. And so when I think about that, as a farmer, everything that I mean, you guys have already seen some of it, like the way I think, it has changed because of time spent on Aina and the lessons that we've learned from Aina. And you see it, and actually HTA, in promoting this event is talking about the Hawaiian system and how, the streams flow and kind of feed everything and keep going down, and you have this kind of system, right? And I think of what we do agroforestry, which is, instead of doing a monocrop, you're building an ecosystem with all these different layers like you might see in a forest. And when I think about our agroforest, I see things that translate into business, right? So I think there's a huge gap in people in these skills that you can only learn through makahana ka'ike, right? In makahana ka'ike being learning by doing, not by YouTube University, not by some research paper. So I would love to see more people in the industry, more decision makers, being on Aina and learning those sort of lessons from Aina. And when we talk about regenerative, right? Like actually, maybe we should have started with defining what does that mean to all of us in the first place. And for me, regenerative, like the outdoor culture, right? They have a couple of sayings. One of them being leave no trace, right? If you're going camping, right? Pick up after yourself and make like you were never there, right? Leave no trace. And to me, that's sustainable, right? That's just like you just status quo. I don't think that's enough anymore, right? And so there's another saying that's, what is it? Leave a place better than you found it. And to me, that gets closer to what regenerative is, right? But I'm going to add something else onto that. I think from a Native Hawaiian perspective, it's not just leaving something better than you found it and going, okay, good, we did good, right? It's slightly better. It's creating these systems so that betterness kind of continues over generations, right? So creating these systems where you're leaving it better than you found it, and it's going to keep happening in that way. And so I feel that so deeply because I do regenerative agriculture. And now with that experience, I can try to translate that and go, what does that mean as a business owner? How do I mimic what's happening on our farm and take those values and put it into our business? I don't know if I could have done it without the agriculture and that kind of deep relationship with Aina, I'm not sure if I would have arrived there as a business owner looking and seeing how can that happen in my business? And so to me, that's a big gap. I think people need to get on Aina, makahana ka'ike, and learn from this place, because that's the only way we're going to truly share the proper story of this place if you know who this place is. So, yeah.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, for me, the gap is the talent, born and raised, bringing them into the industry so they can share the stories and so that they can enlighten the companies that own these hotels and make sure that they're doing everything in the proper way. And we have failed. We do continue to work with Maui College and the TIM School, but we do lose a lot of our students to the continent and they don't come back. And so for us, that gap is so crucial and critical, is creating that workforce pipeline. And we're starting to work with middle school children to show them where they can be and how they can help perpetuate our culture and our way of living and continuing to embrace our community by coming into the visitor industry and making sure everything is done in a way that's proper.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was awesome. Okay. We have about 8 minutes left, and we're going to do quick fire round because we've got a lot of good questions. And I think that there's a really good one here that I want us to address that speaks to how do we incorporate Hawaiian culture, values, and language into our businesses, especially if we are not a native Hawaiian business. And this is an important and it's a timely topic because we had, I forget the fast food company, Hawaiian Bros or something, that's been making a ton of press in social media, and they did a thing similar to Aloha Poke where they were copywriting some phrases and whatnot. But even outside of that sort of outlier example, right, there are companies, both nonprofit and for-profit, throughout Hawaii that have Hawaiian language, that utilize Hawaiian language. And there's a lot of conversation around whether that is right to do or not. The questioner here mentioned she's raised on Maui, but not Hawaiian. She was speaking to a native Hawaiian business owner who shared that it was offensive to him for her to use Olelo Hawaii on her website as a non-speaker of the language. Now, there's two ways we can go about this, because not using the language at all leads to an erasure of the language. But there's a proper way to do it. And actually, I was wondering if, Lisa, you could speak to this first, because you're not native Hawaiian, your length of time in the industry, but also your compassionate way that I know you spoke about this before. And can you just maybe, and I want to go sort of quick, I know this is a big question, but for everyone in the audience, both in person and Zoom, we live in Hawaii. If you are not native Hawaiian, how do you honor Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian language without misappropriating it?
So yes, as a non-native Hawaiian, I'm always super, super careful. I don't speak Olelo. I'm not very good at it, but when I do need to use it in my work life, I make sure that I pass it by somebody who is educated, usually a cultural advisor. And I encourage everything that I do in Maui Hotel and Lodging Association. If we put something out there, we make sure that we have it reviewed and approved before we have it go out to the public.
Thank you. Maile? Or
I feel like I just answered it, so that was my answer for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a real tough one in my seat. We see it a lot. I think the benefit I have of a publisher who is very transparently aware, and he's absolutely fascinated with entomology as a study. And then there's this thing about Hawaii that you can Google what it means, kind of, but you shouldn't. I mean, like, that shouldn't be it. If I'm completely ambiguous enough for you, it is such a loaded question. Cultural, it's safe before sorry, and then just be real sorry if someone calls you out, and be willing to learn. And try really hard to care and understand. And if someone takes an issue, give grace and find out why and commit to do better.
Okay, I'm ready. I have 2 words. Awamo kuleana. I feel like if you're going to speak up and use Hawaiian language in your business or in words that you speak about your products or in your name of your company, you better know how to carry the weight of that with you and how to effectively communicate what it means to you and to your business and to how you live your life. All of that needs to connect. There's no way to just have, okay, well, I'm gonna just kind of research how to say this, and then we're gonna insert this olelo no eao at the top of my headline so that it could talk about what it means to be, what we're going through, and tell that story. And then we're just gonna progress and move on and not really be that or acknowledge that. And I feel like in order to use that, you better come with it in knowing how to utilize and live that through how you run your business and your connections and who you are in your life. So I think it's very important. I also agree with you in the fact that not using it can be hard, right? It can kind of erase who we are, but also using it in a way to tell your story and not to profit. I think that's a really big thing that we need to connect with as well. So much times we see malama, things like this, right? Kokua, but then pono. There's a few words that come to mind quite often, and it does catch your eye. And I do look at it a little bit deeper and see how are they utilizing that within their business or their storytelling. And sometimes you don't ever see that word again within that when we look deeper. But sometimes you do, and there's different ways and the people that you meet. And so I think it's a little bit hard, but I think when you jump into that and you take on that, you also take on that responsibility. So, yeah.
Thank you. And this is something that's, I was going to gesture at Ilihia, he's over there now, but, growing up we hear a lot, right? Don't use culture as a prop. One of my other kumu would talk about, the condiment on the table. Oh, just sprinkle some, just some ketchup on top, some Hawaiian ketchup. It's all good now, right? And we see that a lot. I mean, I would be remiss to say that I've spent the majority of my professional life helping non-Hawaiian companies figure out how to incorporate Hawaiian culture, opening Andas, being the Hawaiian cultural advisor at Grand Wailea, and many other, companies in my independent contractor life. But I talk about it as integration, right? It's cultural integration, because if you're going to say, oh yeah, we want a malama, it goes, okay, well then past the headline, how do we do that, right? How do we incorporate, right? If malama is about caring for, but caring for, and you brought up time and space, is about malama, like the month, about the kaulana mahina, then let's talk about how do we integrate this into everything we do on a daily basis, not just for the PR stunt, but when we come into work, how we treat our employees, how we treat, the community partners that we have. How can we really make this a living, breathing Hawaiian thing, not just a marketing ploy? Right, and that's something that you need the proper people in place, and people to hold you accountable, and people to talk to. And so one of the words that I'm going to pull out of this panel for today is pilina. It's got brought up a lot. When we talk about regenerative, we talk about circular economy. We're talking about pilina. We're talking about relationships, about connection. Yeah, because all of you here today, I hope that there was something that you gained out of this. And I hope that in the next hour, as we drift into the resource fair, you have the opportunity to talk to these guys, to go and hang out with some of the people out there, and find an opportunity for pilina, for connection, and for creating more of a circular regenerative economy. So please help me thank our panelists for today. Mahalo, Britt, Maile, Lehia, Lisa, mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.